It is becoming obviously clear that the path that leads to the least success is SMU being involved in track meets.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another week of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. And by the way, for those of you that listen every day, we appreciate you so much. For those of y'all who are new, welcome in to the Locked On SMU community. Our show today is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. And we'll tell you more about that as we go on in the show. Coming up on today's show, one of my takeaways from this game is that there is little margin for error for this one position group. You probably won't guess what I'm talking about. Plus, it's time to lower the microscope onto some of these coaching decisions and coaching plans. So we'll get to all of that throughout the show. I'm Grayson Singleton. Glad you're with me, and thanks for making me your first listen of the day. Okay, so I went all the way back to Baylor. Let's go back to the Baylor game 2 weeks ago. And I said SMU's path to victory is going to be ball control, make sure Sawyer Robertson doesn't have the ball an ample amount of times where he can throw it all over the field and cut down your defense. And he did just that. And I said the same thing going into this TCU game, that SMU, if they're going to defeat a top-flight quarterback like Josh Hoover has been all season long, and like Josh Hoover was yesterday, he had a QBR, surprisingly, given his completion percentage, of just south of 90. So he has been consistently excellent through the first month of the season. But SMU's path to the least amount of success was to have those two games play out exactly how they did. And look, because of the defense and because of how poor the pass defense is, you don't want to put pressure on your offense to have to go score every time. And those two, the offense and the defense, work in conjunction with each other in terms of how to slow a game down. But let's tackle the defense, because I think that's where a lot of you want to start. We'll start with the defense. Number one, the tackling is atrocious. The coverage is bad. And the fact that they're giving up big plays is even worse. And how those big plays are coming about. It makes you as a fan just want to, hide in a hole. Just dig yourself 6 feet under and don't come out. That's how poor the pass defense has been. And look, you don't have to overstate it, but the amount of times where it's just chunk play, touchdown, give the ball back to SMU. SMU didn't keep it for a whole heck of a lot. Do you realize in this game, there was an abundance of possessions? There were a lot more possessions than would go in SMU's favor. Let's count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not going to count the end of the half. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. There were 21 possessions in this game. And given how bad, I know that's not an absurd number in reality, but given how bad SMU's pass defense has been, you probably would have wanted to shrink that to 17 or 18. That's just the reality of the situation. So SMU is so big play, is so susceptible to the big play that it heightens your ability to have a game like that. And on the flip side to it, if we want to shift to the offense is not equipped to just be going bar for bar with other offenses. If that is going to be the case, you're going to need one of two things. You're going to need an elite transformative play caller or an elite transformative quarterback. And by the way, you're going to need a hell of an offensive line to keep said quarterback clean, and you're going to need a top-flight receiving core. I'm sorry, but the only team that I have seen in my lifetime that has spanned 23 years on this earth is the 2019 LSU Tigers and those Oklahoma teams under Lincoln Riley that fit that category. Because LSU could have won the Natty without a good defense. Oklahoma was in the natty conversation, and they didn't play a semblance of defense when Lincoln Riley was there. SMU does not fit that bill. So you have a good quarterback, not a transcendent one. You have a good head coach who's also a play caller, probably not a transcendent one. You've got a good receiving core, not a great one. You got certainly good targets, but not great. And you've got a good offensive line that did not play very good, especially as the game went on. And all that to say is that given the defense's inability to prevent big plays and also, to tackle, and the fact that your offense isn't built for a quick strike, games like that, a track meet is the worst thing in the world that could possibly happen for SMU. And twice now against Power 4 teams, they have allowed themselves to get in that sort of a game where it exposes literally everything wrong with this team. And there's not a whole heck of a lot that is miserably wrong, but that sort of a game exposes SMU's deficiencies. It exposes their deficiencies in the pass, passing defense. It exposes their inability to defend the middle of the field. It exposes the secondary's inability to tackle people. And then on the offensive side, it exposes the pass blocking, which has been suspect to some degree, which puts more of an emphasis on Kevin Jennings' mobility, which, by the way, he's not healthy right now completely, which thank God for the bye week for Kevin Jennings' ankle. And then it also puts more pressure on Kevin Jennings, who is not the most accurate thrower of the football and can be prone to mistakes. It puts you in a situation where you've got to air it out. It also, and we'll talk more about this at the end of the show, it also gives the coaching staff more opportunity to panic, which I think in games against Baylor and games against TCU have happened twice. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But when you have a situation like where you got in against TCU, where you're going up and down, bar for bar, Jennings versus Hoover, whose offense can win. By the way, you're not running the football very well come the second half, because in the first half, they averaged five yards a carry. They were excellent running the ball in the first half. That did not translate to the second half. So what you really should have done, what you really had to do, is make sure that you take time off the clock, you keep the ball in the short game, in the quick game, loosen things up, try everything to make sure that you still can run the football effectively and remain two-dimensional. Everything falls apart when you're having to go up and down the field with somebody else. It just does. And that should concern you. Well, before yesterday, it would have concerned you about Syracuse, but their quarterback just blew his Achilles. So we'll see what that game looks like. It should concern you against Miami. I don't know if it should concern you against Clemson or not, because I have no idea what to be concerned about with Clemson. But the way that SMU has gotten into games with the two Power 4 opponents that they've played has absolutely served to the detriment of everything SMU can do. Because when SMU can be a good football team is when they are a balanced offense, they can run the ball, they can go off the play action, they're running boots, they're getting into a quick game. It's boom, boom, run the ball, maybe take your shots there. That's where SMU is excellent. But where they can be certainly had and have been had 2 out of 2 opportunities is when you get the game to where you're having to shoot up and down the field and the offense feels like it has to score every single time because the defense is, quite frankly, not capable of preventing big plays right now. Now, does the offense bear some culpability for this? Yes, it does. The offense has to slow the game down in and of itself. It absolutely has to. Last thing, if you go back to the offense's drives, in the first half when things were nip and tuck, you had a field goal drive that took 5:18 off the clock. You had a touchdown drive, 12 plays, 7 minutes off the clock. In the second half, touchdown drive took 4:56 off the clock. You had a punt drive, 3 and out, 1:23 off the clock. Your next touchdown drive only took just under 2 minutes off the clock. You had a 3 and out that took 30 seconds off the clock. We'll come back to that later. And you had you had the last 2 drives that ended up in picks. You see the contrast there. SMU is nip and tuck with whoever they play when they can control the time of possession and control the clock. Outside of that, it's a problem. Coming up next, the defense, oh boy, they weren't good. And they're putting a lot of pressure and really squeezing the margin of error for this one position group. We'll talk about that on the other side. Keep it here on Locked On SMU. Hey, some of y'all were at the game. I live up here in Norman, and I was at the Oklahoma game this weekend too. So, quick question for all of you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm asking about hats. Which hat would you be wearing? And for me, it would be hats from the game. These aren't just hats, but they're the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And check this out. They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKED ON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Yeah, no joke. Head to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps.com and grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKED ON for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. All right, welcome back here to Locked On SMU. I'm Grayson Singleton. By the way, go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Appreciate all of you that watch every single day. Appreciate the audio listeners on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And by the way, find me on Twitter, Gray_Singleton too. Okay, the margin for error is shrinking with this position group, and because of the defense's inability to prevent big plays or just prevent teams from walking down the field, the margin for error on the offense as a whole is substantially getting smaller. It just is. And I look at these drive summaries again, and I watch the game and I can see it, but you look at the drive summaries, you just look at how this is happening. TCU in the second half, a touchdown drive of 4 plays that resulted in a 4-yard touchdown pass. You had another touchdown, 3 plays, 55 yards, 70-yard touchdown to Eric McAllister. You had another touchdown, 6 touchdown drive, 6 plays, 245, and a 44-yard touchdown. Like, this is a problem. I'm going to give you another stat for this one. Josh Hoover completed 22 of his 40 passes. He was not efficient at all for 379 yards. Even with completing 22 of 40 passes, he had an average of 9.5 yards per attempt. It gets worse from there. Trent Battle, the running back, 7 carries for 60 yards. That is 8.6 yards per carry. Eric McAllister, yards per catch, 31.8 yards. Because the defense cannot prevent big plays, the offense now has to go up and down the field and score some sort of points every single time. There is zero margin for error for the offense. None whatsoever. It does not exist. And until the defense can figure out how to keep people from bombing them over the top, or just from checking it down and being unable to get the guy on the ground, the offense is going to have to keep going out and scoring. Because it's one thing, I will say this, it is one thing if the defense is bend but don't break, so they're giving up points every drive, but they're all 10-play, 12-play drives that are eating 5.5, 6, 7 minutes off the clock. That is one thing. And I know it's really hard to do because of the college football clock rules. But that is hard. That's one thing. But when it is quick strike, now all of a sudden the offense has to run back on the field, and offense is the side of the ball where more errors can happen. We know this. The offense has to be so much more connected. There's fumbles, there's tipped balls, interceptions, sacks, what have you, right? And then all of a sudden you have a drive where you move the chains and then 3 more plays and done. And then all of a sudden, another big play. You're in a 14-0 hole, 10-0 hole, right? So right now, SMU is in a totally precarious situation where the offense has to go up and down the field and score. And like I said in the first segment, this offense is not built to do that. If you had to ask me, do I want Kevin Jennings trying to air it out and go run a sprint with name your quarterback? Most of them, I would say no. Carson Beck in the Miami offense? Nope. Not to mention that Miami offense can beat you in a multitude of different ways with how they're playing. When I feel comfortable going up against Louisville, how well coached they are, and Miller Moss and the backfield that they have, and say, hey, offense, you got to score every time, otherwise we're not going to beat these guys. That's not a great situation. It's just not. And you have to have some measure of margin for error for your offense, especially with a team like SMU, who has a lot of good players all over their offense. They have a lot of good players, but they do not have transcendent great ones that can overcome certain things. As good as Kevin Jennings is, and as well as Kevin Jennings has played this season, and he has played well, pulling up his numbers right now, he's already thrown for 1,126 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. That 5 picks there, and I know 2 of them came in desperation time, but those 5 picks is interesting for this reason. It means there is a ceiling on what Kevin Jennings can do. And he put that team on his back in the second half. Gimpy ankle and all, put that team on his back and still wasn't able to overcome everything. That right there should tell you we've got good players. We've got players that we can win games with, but we cannot do it if we're just forced to go up and down the field and score every time. It's a lot to ask. By the way, there are a lot of other teams in college football that this is applicable to. If LSU's defense was a leaky faucet, yeah, they got that offense right against Southeastern Louisiana where they dropped 55. Is LSU undefeated? You could possibly say the same thing for Ohio State. True freshman quarterback. You could say the same thing about Texas. Their offense got right this week, but what do they look like if their defense isn't elite? Oklahoma, who's ranked number 7 in the country. The same thing goes for them. What I'm talking about here goes for a lot of teams across college football. This is not just something unique to SMU, but especially with the way, and again, you can get away with it if you have greatness at play calling, if you have greatness at running back, at quarterback, wide receiver, if your O-line is just stout as all get out. But that does not apply here. Your wiggle room to make up for a defense that can't stop anybody. SMU, that's not their personnel. It's not their personnel. But this issue is not, like I said, it's not unique to SMU. But the bye week, I think, comes at a very, very necessary time because they've got to figure out maybe not how to be a top half of the ACC defense, but you have to be right there around it. You can't look this bad. You can't have plays where you've got Josh Hoover in a bind and then he's able to chuck one to Eric McAllister and he just, waltzes into the end zone. You can't have him getting loose for 2 touchdowns of plus 40 yards. It just cannot happen because then it's back-breaking for the defensive unit. And then the offense is watching and saying, oh, yeah, we got this. We got this. Let's go out of the field and play pressure-free. And then all of a sudden, oops, now we actually have to go do it because the offense is under way too much pressure with the way that these sorts of games against big-time teams are unfolding. And the offense has done its job. The offense this season, SMU, in terms of scoring the football, have scored 42 points against East Texas A&M. Well, I guess 35 because there was a pick 6. They scored 45 against Baylor, 28 against Missouri State, and 24 against TCU. You should be able to win ball games scoring the football like they do, but they cannot. They can't. So the defense, I think, over the bye week, you have to emphasize 2 things. Number one, we can't let guys just get behind us. And number two, for the love of everything mighty, you must tackle better. Because, look, some of the big plays happen because they're just not getting guys on the ground. They start getting guys on the ground, this defense looks better. Maybe not a lot better, but it looks better. So if you can come out of the bye week just doing that better, you're already in a better spot. And you're already alleviating some of that pressure off your offense. But until then, good luck, Rhett Lashley and Casey Woods, because, oh boy, right now it's in a situation where you got to score every time down. Speaking of Rhett Lashley and Casey Woods, group Scott Simons into this too. Is it time to start questioning them? Tell you on the other side to wrap up the show. We're presented today by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if the bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That is nuts. So why do I love using FanDuel? Well, my favorite thing about it is because however I want to bet, I can do it. Same game parlays. You can jump in with live action, or you can do what I like to do best, and that's build player props and a parlay of those. You can do it all, and it's quick and easy, and it just adds a little bit more energy to your Sunday watching. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We're also brought to you today by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or that corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, even before you were even there. These are places that bring people together. So what does supporting a community look like? Spending money isn't just to support that business, but a lot of times those businesses turn around and use some of it to support the community as well. And whether I've lived in the DFW area, whether I've lived in Stillwater, Oklahoma, or now here in Norman, Oklahoma, I love to support businesses. Man, y'all should go and check out some of these businesses in the Dallas area. Written by the Seasons is an excellent place. La Casita Coffee, and of course, one of my favorite, Einstein Bros Bagels in the DFW airport. I always go there anytime I've got to fly out of DFW. Those are just some of them that are on Square. Go ahead and support local businesses, and they are on Square as well. A proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. Go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. All right, let's wrap this up talking about our least favorite topic, the coaches. Because generally when we're talking about the coaches, it's not good. And today it's not. This is not to say that Rhett Lashley or Casey Woods or Scott Simons are not good coaches. They are quality coaches by all stretches of the imagination. But they have failed now in 2 games to do one of 2 or both of the things that I'm about to lay out. Number one, they do not stay ahead of the other team's coaches very well. In the second half, the adjustment game has been won by Dave Aranda and Jake Spavital's offense over Scott Simon's defense, and Sonny Dykes and his entire operation over SMU's entire operation. The second half has been so heavily tilted, and that heavy tilt may not be reflected in the scoreboard, but both of those teams, Baylor and TCU, have looked head and shoulders better in the second half than SMU has in those respective games. I don't think that it's much of a discussion. And when you remain doing what you're doing without making any adjustments, or you're being out adjusted, it's just going to be hard to win games against good teams, but also good teams with precision surgical quarterbacks. And quite frankly, Josh Hoover wasn't very precise, but boy, when they need to make plays, you could see that SMU's defense wasn't ready for it. But that's the first thing. The second thing that SMU has not done well in terms of its coaching staff, is remaining true to its own identity. And I hinted at this in my post-game reaction yesterday. But in terms of remaining true to your identity, what is SMU's identity, especially on offense? The first point that I just made had more to do with the defense. This one has more to do with the offense. The offense's biggest strength is how they can run the football. And I know that the running game sort of, vanished in the second half yesterday. They did not run the ball very efficiently. They didn't run it well in the second half against TCU. But let me pitch this to you. In the fourth quarter, TCU scores a touchdown to go up 28-24. At that point, there was 9:18 to play in the game, and SMU was now down 4. The next drive, incomplete pass to Romello Brinson, incomplete pass to Jalen Cooper, who, by the way, only had one catch early in the first half and didn't have another catch the rest of the game, and then an incomplete pass to Jordan Hudson. And it was over. Defense back onto the field after getting gashed for a big play, right back onto the field 30 seconds of game time later, 6-play, 75-yard drive, 2:45 off the clock. TCU goes up 35-24, and for the most part, that was all she wrote. Okay. Why did you stop running the ball? I mean, let's be real. Let's be real here. Not one of these you ran the ball. I know that it had been stopped up until that point in the second half. I mean, SMU was running the ball for 5 yards a carry at halftime. By the end of the game, they had run it for 3.5. You guys can do the math and figure out what happened in between. But I don't understand for the life of me that your offensive line, I know the run blocking was inconsistent, but their best quality this season so far has been their ability to block in the run game. And you could say, well, maybe they got tired. Well, guess who else got tired and who's been playing the same game? TCU's defensive front. At least try it. At least try it. And this ties back in to the top of the show. How SMU can make sure that these games are lower possession and give your defense a little bit more time to adjust by playing ball control offense. That doesn't mean you have to go ultra conservative. It doesn't mean we're going back to the early 2000s. But at least one of those three should have been run plays. And it's the second time that something like this has popped up, because in the Baylor game, if you remember, on the penultimate SMU drive of regulation, and for those of you that don't know what penultimate means, it means the next to last. SMU was trying to keep it away from Baylor. They faced a 3rd down and 4, and what did they do? They dropped Kevin Jennings back and dropped him back, is what I mean. And look, I'm not anti going with the pass there, but it's got to be a quick hit or some sort of extension of the run, because at that point, TJ Harden was carrying the ball for 6 yards a carry. You just can't go away from it. And when the going gets tough, you have to return, or at least attempt to return, to what you do best. And I know Kevin Jennings had put the team on his back, and you're going to try to see what happens. I get all of that. But even when you're in 2nd and 10, let's at least try some sort of misdirection run play to get us into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, maybe, right? We don't want to be in 3rd and 10 where the pass blocking's weakness is, or the offensive line's weakness is the pass blocking. Like that just, to me, that just doesn't make a lot of strategic sense. And now that's 2 games and 2 losses where, in terms of when it's time to make sure that in critical junctures, what we're doing strategy-wise is what we should be doing. And that's 2 games in a row against Power 4 teams where that hasn't been the case. And look, there haven't been any critical moments in the East Texas A&M and Missouri State games. I know everybody will probably be like, well, why are you leaving out the other 2 games? Because they weren't close and they weren't quality opponents. This is where you get judged, and you had close games, and quite frankly, you kind of botched both of them. So I think it is time that we look at the coaching staff and say, hey, are you guys going to make quality adjustments? And number 2, are you going to be able to stay within yourself and remain with your identity, even when you might be down a little bit on the scoreboard? Because they were only down 4 after that TCU touchdown. It wasn't like they were down 11. You were only down 4. You got to be able to at least say, let's try to run the ball in that situation. That's where you have to be. So going forward, and maybe the bye week will be a good reset for the staff too. I'm sure it will be. But got to be able to adjust better and got to be able to stay within yourself, even when those critical junctures in a game come. All right, that'll do it for Locked On SMU today here on a Monday as we start out a new week, heading into a bye weekend. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. And remember, coming up on Thursday, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and all of our local experts here on Locked On. It's a college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow here on Locked On SMU. Take it easy, everybody.